Thanks for joining us. We're just going to take a minute to let everyone join here, but you're welcome to use the chat. We really encourage you to share your social handles, where you're from, what kind of companies you work for, and we're going to use the chat throughout our time today to share questions or to engage with each other. You can send it as a group message to everyone, or you can engage directly with other participants. So that's always fun. So please feel free to go ahead and share your info or a link to your website. We're keen to know more about you. We're just going to give it one more minute as everyone joins, and then we'll get going. All right. So welcome to Marigold Live. I was saying just before we started with our panelists just a couple minutes ago, we've done so many virtual events at this point, and we're always so grateful for everyone that shows up because we do feel it's a really valuable use of time. It's wonderful to get to know everyone and to make some new connections and help move everyone's business forward. So we always appreciate that. And we're really excited today to focus on B2B PR and marketing strategies. So this is something Marigold spent a lot of time doing with our clients and working with the media on. And we have an amazing representation of both clients and media here today to share some insights. I'm Katie, I'm the co-founder of Marigold PR. We've been in the cannabis space since 2016. So for some of you that have been around since then or longer, you know it's been a wild ride. So we've worked in multiple areas of the business. We've worked with over 120 cannabis brands, which is pretty exciting. And we have supported with lots of different services, including branding, communications, PR strategy, events, and media relations. Today, I'd like to give a really big shout out to our sponsor, Cropsify, who you'll hear from in just a minute. We have a packed agenda today with a few different sections. So first, we're going to start with a bit of a Cropsify spotlight. Again, thank you to Dallas, who will be presenting in a moment. From there, we have our B2B media panel featuring some amazing publications and some journalists to share some insights with you. And each panel will have a chance for a Q&A. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat, like I mentioned earlier, or save them for the Q&A. That's up to you. But there will be a chance for you to share questions. Our final panel is all around relationship building and global efforts. So we have an amazing team with us today to share their insights working in Canada and beyond. And then we wrap with some sort of round robin speed dating, so to speak, networking, where you'll have a chance to talk directly with a smaller group of people about your business and maybe some things you learned today. So again, feel free to use the chat. That's what it's there for. And now I would like to introduce Dallas from Cropsify. I'm just going to read Dallas's bio here. Dallas has over 15 years experience in cannabis and is a recognized expert in the regulatory compliance and cultivation. He's the founder and president of Cropsify, a leading business software company that specializes in helping cannabis businesses within regulatory compliance while maintaining cost effectiveness. So thank you so much, Dallas. Over to you.
Thanks, Katie. I'll make this really easy. So what we've done is prepared a new explainer video for you all. So let me just share my screen, and without further ado, let's play it. If you have any questions after, just feel free to contact me through the website or the chat or email.
Hello. Welcome to Cropsify Cannabis, the original cannabis software that can streamline your entire production process, from cultivation to extraction, packaging, and medical sales. With our amazing all-in-one solution, you can expand your business and stay compliant with regulations, so you ensure that your operations run smoothly. In fact, client feedback has been told our all-in-one solution eliminates the need for a combination of software, spreadsheets, and paper records, saving literally thousands of dollars and countless hours each month. Talk about the possibilities. Speaking of which, there are countless different ways you can improve your entire production process, from cultivation to extraction, packaging, and even medical sales using Cropsify. For instance, with our one-click plus audit feature, the Health Canada and Canada Revenue Agency monthly reports are easily accessed, audited, and submitted with the necessary paperwork to keep your business on track. Or our labeling and excise stamp tracking feature ensures that your products are properly labeled and tracked throughout the supply chain, providing you with the necessary documentation to demonstrate compliance and prevent costly recalls. You could even manage quality assurance, including CAPA processing, equipment logs, environment logs, SOP versioning, and SOP training log. Our all-in-one system is also designed to be customizable to fit your specific business needs. For example, customizable vendor pricing and provincial fees, product definitions, package specifications, and medical prescription management. You can tailor Cropsify to work best for your business. As you can see, Cropsify is an all-in-one solution that includes everything you need to manage your cannabis business like no other software can do. But as exciting as all that is, it's just the tip of the iceberg of what Cropsify can do. Our system will provide you with dozens of tools you need to help you avoid timely audits, stay compliant with regulations, and to ensure that your operations run smoothly in all departments. For example, our SOP change control and training management feature ensures that your QE team keeps personnel up to date and that your production team is compliant with the highest standards. You can also manage your partnerships and distribution channels, including LP agreements, multi-LP, tenants, multi-company, G-team, barcodes, e-commerce, and pre-order planning. Then use Cropsify to centralize your client lists, inventory, and product specifications to seamlessly move products to market with the right digital paperwork at your fingertips. And with our financial reporting system, you can easily track your profits and expenses, ensuring that your business stays profitable. Because it's fast and reliable access to your data is organized to meet the tough demands for auditors, finance teams, and production crews. So your teams have an optimal view of the facility in a moment's notice. And our system includes direct delivery, medical sales, recreational distribution, intra-industry distribution, and First Nations taxation capabilities, as well as customer marketing incentives. For instance, use Cropsify to create orders to any province with the right excise duty invoiced and stamped automatically with no human error, or create custom localized extra order fees and provincial data subscription or early payment fees, which get automatically calculated on your invoices. You'll also enjoy a variety of tools to help you manage your operations, including batch production records, production planning, invoice, and purchase order generation, audit assist tools, and real-time audit support. You'll be surprised how easy it is to use and be delighted by our excellent training and support with user manual documentation and support ticketing system. This will get you going fast and you can get the live support you need when you need it. As you can see, Cropsify helps you by providing the most complete all-in-one solution around by providing centralized control for all departments, making monthly reporting way easier to audit, providing valuable analytical insights, helping you eliminate paperwork to go paperless, offering so many tools to simplify whatever you need, including cultivation, extraction, packaging, medical sales, regulatory reporting, and much more. So if you're ready to make your live audits less burdensome and record keeping exponentially more effective, visit our website right now to schedule a consultation and get started. With Cropsify's dozens of tools, centralized data, one-click monthly reporting, and exceptional support, you'll be wondering why you've been doing things the hard way for so long. On behalf of the entire Cropsify Cannabis team, I want to welcome you to the absolute best cannabis software you'll find anywhere. So go ahead and visit our website right now to schedule a consultation and get started with your own Cropsification.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dallas. You can reach Dallas in the chat if you want to ask him any questions. And Dallas, what's your email in case someone wants to reach out direct?
It's just dallas@cropsify.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, now we're getting into our very first panel. We're excited to have some of the amazing publications here today. I'm going to introduce your moderator today, and then she will throw to the panelists. So I'd like to introduce Brooke Russell. She's been a part of the Marigold team for a couple years now. She's one of our account managers and has tons of experience in this arena and actually a relationship with everyone on the panel today. So thanks so much, Brooke, for moderating, and over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Katie. And hi, everyone. Welcome to our first panel of the afternoon. I'll be your moderator, Brooke Russell, account manager at Marigold Marketing and PR. I'm thrilled to be joined by some of the most knowledgeable and experienced professionals in cannabis trade media. Our panelists include David Halpert, founder and CEO of Cannabis Prospect Magazine, David Brown, co-founder of StratCan Media, Nicholas Rodriguez, writer at Benzinga Cannabis, and Adam Spakowski, publisher of Grow Opportunity. These individuals bring a wealth of experience and insight to the table, and I'm sure we're all excited to hear their perspectives on the topic at hand. I'll now have the speakers just give a bit more of an introduction to themselves. If we can start with you, David Halpert.
Yes, thank you. As Brooke said, my name is David Halpert, and I'm the founder and publisher of Cannabis Prospect Magazine. We're a trade publication for the cannabis space. We're going into we're in our 5th year now, almost halfway through, if you can believe it. We go to about 3,000 subscribers, primarily retailers, but we go to several hundred LPs, and as well as people who essentially work in either the service-oriented side of the industry or manufactured product side of the industry. And we just hope to keep doing what we're doing, and I'm happy to be part of this industry.
Thanks, David. Over to you, David Brown.
Hi, thanks, Brooke. Yeah, my name is David Brown. I am the founder of StratCan. We are an online industry publication covering the Canadian cannabis industry. We are also an events company and have just concluded our 3rd event of our Growing Relationships series in Calgary just last weekend. So we've been in operation for about 3 years now, and I have been working in the cannabis space for about 10 years now, both on the sort of media and reporting side, as well as the working on the regulations themselves.
Awesome. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Brooke. My name's Adam Spakowski. I'm publisher of Grow Opportunity Magazine. We're a B2B trade publication for licensed producers in Canada. We have 6 issues a year and a whole host of online and digital content. And our goal is to help licensed producers in Canada manage their business and grow better. So thanks a lot for having me.
Awesome. And Nicholas, over to you.
Hi, how are you? Happy to be here. My name is Nicholas. I'm from Benzinga Cannabis. I work there as a staff writer, but I'm also a researcher on cannabis policy and macroeconomics. I'm focused on small businesses, and branding is a big part of my dissertation. So happy to be here and hope to share as much as possible with you and learn as well. Thanks.
Well, we're just going to jump right into it. David Halpert, we're going to throw it back to you to start us off. How does trade marketing for cannabis differ from trademarking in other industries?
Sure. I'll try and keep this short and sweet. I don't come from a cannabis background. I actually come from more of the B2B media background. I've been in working for publishers either on the editorial or the sales side for the better part of 15 years. I've worked with automotive trade magazines, hardware magazines, pensions, investments, insurance, and that. And what's interesting about trade marketing, or I guess in our case, my case, trade media, is that really when you're working on I guess we operate magazines on a year-to-year basis, but really for certain industries, things don't change all that much. I mean, as industries evolve, you have different technologies, you have different policies, and really we're supposed to, just keep our readers, people in that industry, abreast of what's going on in the industry. And then what's the interesting thing about cannabis is, number one, is obviously it didn't exist more than 5 years ago. So everything is new, and everything is, I guess the best word to describe it, maybe fluid, mercurial. Nothing ever stays the same. What's interesting about it is after working in the space for 5 years, what might be topical or what might be of use in my industry from an education or information perspective 6 months ago might be completely obsolete or outdated within the same year of cannabis if laws in turn change. So that's probably the first thing. It's just how things are always constantly changing. The second thing that I found, and this might be a little more tougher to explain, but I've talked to people in marketing for cannabis brands who also come from other industry, regardless of where they come from. And one of the things they tell me, and again, these are more seasoned marketers, people who have been in doing their jobs for 15, 20 plus years, having come from other industry, is that while people in trade magazines and trade media certainly keep an eye on what happens on the consumer marketing side, cannabis is kind of interesting in that the level of engagement they see from posting a press release, let's say, from consumers is something they've never seen in other industries before, which I find fascinating. And I'm not just talking about investors, but I think what we're seeing kind of with cannabis is there's sort of like a blurring between consumer marketing and trade marketing at times. And that's very interesting for me because it's kind of more of it's more engaging, and it's more of like a two-way street for these marketers in these spaces. And I guess that gives them more of a chance to kind of be engaging and operating, but it also gives them a chance to reach basically a larger audience, not just through, say, their social media channels. What might be considered, I don't want to, for lack of a better term, a boring press release in other industries that might not get a lot of traction, other from the people who actually work in these industries and the media from them, might get a lot more engagement and viewership just from the layperson or for the average consumer. So I think those are just two very interesting ways that that trade marketing for cannabis is different by and large.
Some really great points there, David. And you touched on the regulatory landscape, and we all know that the regulatory framework varies significantly from one jurisdiction to another, making it extremely challenging for cannabis businesses to market their products in a consistent and legally compliant manner. David Brown, how is the regulatory landscape evolving when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, great question. I would sort of break that down into two different categories. I think on one hand, we're seeing an evolution of the regulations largely at the provincial level in regard to not only regulations, but enforcement of those regulations, evolving and in most cases becoming a little more relaxed. The best example of kind of strict interpretation of those marketing rules is in Alberta, where we see pretty aggressive fines and other penalties applied for people violating their interpretation of federal and provincial marketing rules. In a lot of other provinces, we see a lot more leeway. We see more of kind of a hands-off approach. Another evolution I think we're seeing that is more important is we're seeing people in this industry having a better understanding of what the federal and provincial limitations actually are. In the first few years of legalization, there were a lot of rumors, really seems to be unique to this industry, and sort of over-interpreting what you are not allowed to do. And I think over time, as people sort of push the boundaries or even break the rules a little bit, people are getting a little more brave and understanding, the wiggle room that they do have. And so I think that's the biggest evolution, honestly. In that first year or so, we had people saying, there's no way to advertise your product. We're now close to 5 years in, and we're seeing a lot of companies understanding not only the compliant ways that they can do that, but also, those areas that they could really push the boundaries through social media. Frankly, there's a local retailer who advertises in my local paper pretty consistently. I suspect that's something where they're just willing to pay the fines or ask forgiveness after the fact. But I think people are understanding that even when it comes to enforcement, it's not like you're going to lose your license over a marketing restriction. You might get a warning letter or a fine or something like that. So people are understanding what the cost of doing business is.
Thanks for that, David. In a saturated market where many brands offer similar products or services, it can be challenging for customers to distinguish one brand from another. Nicholas, can you expand on why brand personality and identity are so important in a saturated market like cannabis?
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. Well, basically, what we're seeing today, I mean, better than anyone else that there's a crowded market. There's a lot of confusion in quality standards. There's a lot of noise in communication. It's hard to distinguish and to set aside, different types of brands and segments, and really distinguish what's your offer. And also consumers are so like diving into a sea of information, and it's really hard to attract the attention of people. So I think that we should look beyond differentiation of products, which is like more traditional strategy, or a basic attributes of brands, or like solving a problem, for example, associating a brand with being efficient at solving something. We need to go beyond that, and we need to start looking at personality. And the brand personality, it's something that attracts people because it reflects people's values and it helps them to express themselves through that brand. So we're going beyond differentiating brands. We're going beyond basic attributes. We're going to the core of values. And I think that's the main argument for that, is that consumers are looking for commitment, and they're looking for a narrative and meaning in this sort of like sea of information that consumers are moving through. So building a personality, it's a twofold process, and we need to think in the end consumer, yes, but also we need to think about in this sort of like ideal or model message receptor that is going to be. We need to engage in a conversation with folks' aspirations and where they want to go, who they want to be, and what they want to become, beyond the traditional demographics of end consumers, and craft this sort of anthropomorphic sort of like personality. It's a profile constructed that they have several physical and socioeconomic characteristics. We need to think in brands as people, and that's going to help us build emotional tiles, build a community, micro branding, anchor the brand meaning into an identity, something that is concrete, and define communication through these personality traits. I think brands are really important. Allow people to express themselves. If I have one more minute, let's think about the last time you went to a dinner party and you bought a bottle of wine, and then you had to make a decision, right? And you went to a wine store. There were several options, and you needed something else that was something more complex than, something else than just something to drink. Because if that was the case, you can take an empty jug and fill it up with water, and that'll be fine, right? But you want to bring something that's going to do more than hydrate you. And then, so it's beyond solving that problem. It's also, you also want something that allows you to say, hey, I'm a culture person. And I think wine is a great example, because you say a lot through the label of a wine, where it comes from, the conversations that you can trigger after that. So all that is part of the brand experience. Sorry if I went too far, but I just wanted to be clear.
Not at all. I love the reference. So thank you for that. Well, great points, Nicholas. And touching more on the challenges front, Adam, what are the marketing challenges you're seeing amongst B2B brands in the cannabis space right now?
So for me, what I'm seeing on the B2B side, it's an attempt to establish trust. And the goal for a lot of these B2B brands is to become thought leaders in this space on a particular niche, but there's very little trust. In our B2B world, sales cycles are long, costs of products and inputs are high, implications of a poor business decision are severe. And so with sales cycles being so long, taking months or years even, trust building is an essential part of that process. And it seems to be even more important in cannabis than other industries for a variety of reasons. Trust is extremely hard to establish, but those who are able to achieve that from the marketing side will absolutely be the long-term winners in this space, in my view. It's also interesting here at Annex Business Media, we have insight into 65 industries. We have 65 trade media brands. And many in agriculture, but none compare to cannabis when it comes to this lack of trust that there is out there. So if I were a marketer, I would look at that as an opportunity to shift your focus maybe to strategies around brand building and trust building, I think you'll be much further ahead of your competitors.
Definitely second that, Adam. We know that when B2B brands build trust with stakeholders, it leads to increased customer loyalty, better relationships with partners, and improved brand reputation in the industry. Following up on that, David Brown, what are the worst ROIs for marketing?
Well, without naming any specific names, I think businesses just need to really look at the ROI. I think we've been in a space in this industry for a little while where people have been kind of throwing money at a lot of different things, trying to see what sticks. And I think we are now entering a space where some of the realities of other industries are impacting this cannabis industry, and we have to get back to fundamentals. And so I think it's really just looking at exactly what you're trying to achieve. Exactly who the audience, if you're attending an event, for an example, exactly who that audience at that event is, and ensuring that every dollar you're spending can actually be translated into, something that's growing your business and your services. And I think, expanding on Adam's point about building that credibility, I think, that ties into that as well, because those businesses who can not only offer something kind of flashy and a way to gather some of that maybe desperate pubco money that is still floating around, but can actually take the time to build a credible business that can actually provide something of substance and value long term for this industry, will create that ROI for your customers.
Awesome. And adding to that conversation of trust, Nicholas, can you touch on building trust with municipal governments and legislators through agenda-focused communication?
Yeah, I think this is something that we're seeing today a lot, is that, especially in the US, it's becoming a municipal industry, and every market counts, every district. And there are some pros and cons in this situation that municipal councils weigh in so much. So the pros is that we got data, and we have some fantastic companies here who crunch numbers, and they do much more than that, and I'm going to let that to them. But we got data on consumers, and we have a system of representation, going back to the policy angle. The cons of approaching municipal governments through their political agenda is that it takes time, and it takes face-to-face interaction, and it's not something that you're going to build from one day to another. It's going to take, again, some kind of not picking a side, but getting involved in your community. And it doesn't mean like throwing big dollars. It's mostly listening and paying attention to what's being discussed in that community. So agenda focus means tuning in with political cycles, alliances, bureaucracies, colors, public budgets, socioeconomic indicators, public demands, and public programs. So every community has one of those, and that can serve sort of like a compass of where to go when it comes to talking to governments. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that there are certain windows of opportunity that we can use to generate changes in councils, and many times you cannot predict those, but most of the institutional windows that are there, and we're talking about celebrations, events, council meetings, hearings, procurement processes, all these public spaces where politicians who actually raise their hand and can open up a market or not are going to be there. And in the end, they're interested in building political relationships in their communities. So the other thing that can work, it's connecting these dots between the political agenda and the political cycle or tide with the benefits of the cannabis industry, and trying to bring on board to your operations as many representatives as possible. Try to connect the needs of our industry or what we have to offer to what's going on in the territory. It's useful sometimes to frame the industry needs to grow and thrive and help people into problems that are already being discussed in the area. Let's say unemployment. There's always a way in which unemployment it's being discussed. So that's across the board. So try to frame it into, I will try to frame it into a narrative that is more that people are familiar with, and try to ease the learning curve for representatives in terms of what we have to offer and why cannabis it's a positive change for communities, and try to move the relationship of cannabis to harm. Try to move it towards positive images. Redirect the understanding of policy problems and trying to bring in cannabis as an answer. I think that can bring, I'm sure, because I look at the numbers and interaction with politicians, framing it into political agendas and face-to-face interaction, it's really key. So I think we should start looking at small places because every place counts.
Really like the idea of cross-framing policy. So that's great points, Nicholas. Thank you. David Helper, what can Canadian cannabis companies do tomorrow to increase their profile and market their brands?
Okay, this is kind of low-hanging fruit, but speaking from experience, well, what's interesting about cannabis is that there isn't a day that goes by where I probably can't go online to any one of the main press wires and find about 4 or 5 relatable that are certainly news for our industry for cannabis space. But I would argue that one of the things they can do tomorrow is just add people like me and Adam and David and Nicholas to their media lists in terms of just getting the word out in terms of press releases. I would call it low-hanging fruit, but it astounds me more often than not that in dealing with my interactions with cannabis companies, manufactured product companies, going to trade shows, meeting people, taking their business cards and saying at the events, one of the things I tell them is, first of all, number one, we're not pay to play magazine or publication or anything like that, but just if you have any press releases or company news, product releases, send them our way, like right away, because like I would rather wake up to an inbox of like 20 or 30 emails from LPs talking about their new products. And then like me being like more, be more proactive, I guess would be my response in that sense, rather than reactive, instead of maybe posting, and only a handful do this, post them on one of the main press wires, send them directly to us, put us on a BCC where it goes to everyone. I don't know if this is experience. I've worked in B2B, like I know Adam, I've worked in your space before, closer to what you've been dealing with, but it's amazing how few actually take me up on that offer. And it doesn't have to be just press. First of all, the press releases can be, they could be a month old, they could be 3 months old. It's kind of like the if I haven't seen it, it's new to me kind of thing. But we're always looking for articles, we're always looking for profile pieces, we're always looking for web articles for our for the magazine. So I think that's easily one of the things brands can do tomorrow. And I know I'm coming off like really excited or enthused about them, but it's amazing how like 80 or 90% just don't or fail to follow up with me. And that seems just like easy that seems like a no-brainer in my opinion, but I don't know, maybe I'll defer to the group and see what their experiences have been.
Well, I see David Brown nodding his head. Get in there and give some perspective as well.
I for one, just excitedly agreeing with David's points. I think businesses really need to understand who their outlets are out there, and there are several of us who are focusing specifically on this industry and having a more refined approach and knowing who they are and who their audiences are, and how you can effectively reach them. I think is important. Another point I would expand on something that was mentioned on a panel at our event this past weekend in Calgary. A couple different retailers really emphasizing to producers to find their niche, to stop kind of looking at customers as cannabis customers as one specific group. There's a whole host of customers, and that's going to be true at any aspect in this industry. And so really understanding how to lean into your niche, I think, will inform what kind of marketing approaches you need to take. Knowing your niche and then knowing who your audience is. A lot of them may not be on Twitter, or they may not be on Facebook. Maybe they're all on Instagram. Maybe they're all on TikTok. Maybe they're all reading StratCan or Grow Opportunity or some of these other publications that are out there, and so maybe throwing money at one of the large national wire companies doesn't really make sense, because you're reaching a lot of people who aren't all that interested in your brand. So I think really understanding what your value as a brand is, what unique aspects you are bringing to the market, and who is going to be interested in what you are bringing to the market, and then how to reach them most effectively.
Following this lead, Adam, what's your process for picking up news stories and editorials for Grow Opportunity?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we'll run readership surveys 2 or 3 times a year, just to ask what sort of content is important to them and what their business challenges are and what keeps them up at night, because that's in constant flux, and we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we were just to assume that sort of thing. So, and then from there, our editor, actually Haley Nagasaki, I think she's on the call. So Haley is our editor, so she's the one reaching out and being the go-to in the industry. But just as important as how the editorial is delivered is typically how it's delivered. So interestingly enough, we know, for example, print-only readers, these readers who prefer long-form, in-depth technical articles are 50% more likely to be decision makers within the company. So knowing that, we can tailor the content to the right person at the right time and that sort of thing. And then finally, leaning on our industry friends and partners like the fine folks at Marigold and David Brown to help us and our audience stay informed.
Yes, we love Haley here at Marigold.
Can I jump in real quick, Brooke?
Of course.
There was just a good question in the chat that I thought sort of built on what we're talking about here, from the Hazy Camper, is asking about how smaller companies can compete with some of these larger brands. And I'm curious some of the other panelists' thoughts on that, but I just wanted to mention that I think companies knowing, it sort of ties into my previous point, that knowing your niche and then knowing how to tell that story and that brand story goes a long way. If you are a cannabis company putting out products, retailers and buyers need a good story to tell consumers. The smaller businesses, I think, have a huge advantage there. The Cannapies and the Freas of the world have a hard time telling a story about the cool, folksy little farm that they are, because they're not. But there's a lot of micro and other craft growers out there that have a great story, and I think if they can figure out how to tell that directly to those buyers in an effective and efficient way, they will find more and more consumers starting to resonate with that. So that's an advantage. You're smaller, lean into that. You don't have the marketing budget of a big company. You can send a street team out to all those retailers. That's fine. Identify those retailers who know how to sell your product, who want to sell your product, and then give them a good story to tell.
Can I jump in here real quick? Just one of the things that, in terms of the editorial, that I find I have trouble with is not so much because when you're working with trade, you're largely considered a national publication for that industry in one respect or another, and we try to balance what's happening at the national level with what's happening at the provincial level. And with 12 provinces, a lot of things change. And I'll be honest, a lot of the time I'm playing catch up in terms of changing, in terms of the changing laws and what might be happening outside of Ontario. The adage that, people from Toronto are self-involved and whatnot. Well, it's to some extent true, but in terms of differentiation, I think there's also a case to be said where if you're an LP or if you're like, a micro cultivator operating out of BC versus, a processor working out of Quebec versus, one working out of Alberta or Nova Scotia, those are also kind of differentiators in and themselves in terms of identity. I've been fascinated by hearing the stories personally coming out of Quebec in terms of just how I think they have a lot more stringent laws in terms of growing and in terms of supply and who they can sell to. These ones that are actually really starting to sell, believe it or not, in the cases where it comes to like things like edibles and packaging and supply, a lot of these are actually starting to sell outside of Quebec now to the ROC, to the rest of Canada. And I think so. I think there's also like a regional story to be said in terms of identity, in terms of coming. I'm just kind of came to me now, but yeah, I think that could be part of it too.
Thanks, everyone. I'm your hook. I'm hopping in to get to the Q&A. We have time for just a couple questions here. I did notice throughout the chat, kind of a few comments that led into retail, which fit into the, the municipality kind of conversation. And something to bear in mind, depending on the type of brand you are, a national publication may make sense for you, but your local paper may also make sense for you. And so just, it goes back to a lot of what the panelists were saying around driving trust, building your narrative, developing press releases, being proactive and putting yourself out there and really knowing your story. And just a little plug for Marigold, if you need any help with any of that, we're certainly here to help you out. But as everyone was saying today, like these are steps that you can start to take for yourself, for your business as well. So definitely give that a shot because of course, thought leadership is so important. Cropsify mentioned up in the chat, they've got a link to a marketing platform as well that might be worth taking a look at. And I thought maybe it might be worth just hearing from the panelists just once more before we hop off. Could you just talk a little bit about the different ways that brands can work with you? We talked a lot about the editorial and the PR side, but you all have quite a few different offerings, including growing relationships, David Brown. So maybe you want to start there with some of the different, maybe everyone can just share some of the different ways brands could collaborate with your publications.
Yeah, I think the best way to reach out to us, you can just reach me at david@stratcan.com. You can also reach admin@stratcan.com. We certainly offer a lot of opportunities to work with companies to tell those brand stories. We have different rates available. We sort of prorate for the micro and craft growers. We really want to help support that community. Some of the larger companies also find it really effective to utilize our platform to tell that story because we have such a unique industry audience. Our event series is another way to sort of integrate those types of companies into our larger ecosystem of telling those stories. So yeah, reach out to us anytime. You can find us on social media or like I say, david@stratcan.com.
Awesome. Adam, over to you. How can we work with Grow Opportunity?
You're muted, Adam.
Thanks, David. Please feel free to reach out to me or Haley anytime. We can certainly help you out with traditional advertising to licensed producers through print or digital or podcasts or social. But today we talked a lot about building trust. And so actually at our company, Annex, we just launched a content studio called Amplify. And so we have a lot of great B2B journalists under our roof. And so this allows clients in the B2B space to help tell your story and write your story. A lot of marketers are nervous about writing content and creating content. Well, we can work with you to learn more about your business and write your story because that's sort of the first step of this whole content marketing journey. So Amplify by Annex, it's called, which is pretty cool.
Cool, thank you. And so we'll do David and Nicholas, and then we'll move over to our next panel. So over to you, David.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, of course, we have, I'm kind of sounding like a broken record with what Adam just said, but yes, we do have traditional advertising because it's just me and my business partner. We're kind of lean and mean. So in terms of rates, I would argue they're very reasonable. And because while our readers are, the majority are retailers, we kind of brand ourselves, as you'll see it on the top of our, on the cover page, most issues, where we consider ourselves a seat to sale publication. Our mandate is kind of, if you can pick up our magazine, regardless if you're an LP or someone in retail or working in any of the other ancillary industries, that are tangential to cannabis, or and you can read an article and get something out of it, whether it's more informative, whether it's more education related, we feel we've done our job. So we've got, of course, the magazines are bread and butter, but we're more than happy to discuss editorial articles, news items, just ways we can kind of have whatever company you are on the radar. And I guess we're kind of getting into the rush for article ideas for the second half of 2023. So more than happy to work during the summer as well, but just keep that in mind. It's David at cannabisproonline.com. I'll put it right here in the chat very quick, but yeah, that's what I would say. So.
Thank you. And then as a final note from Benzinga, what are your thoughts?
The stories I enjoy very much telling are about what's going on in the operation, also technical challenges, innovation, new stuff, and also sharing knowledge. That's mainly what I try to do when I write for Benzinga. So contact me in case you want to share some of your thoughts, technology solutions with the industry. We are a media focus that we have access to the biotechnology sector, finance, all you need. Write us.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much, Brooke. We're going to give Mackenzie a second in the back end here. She's going to get us turned over to the next panel.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. So today, really excited to introduce Karen. Some of you here already have got a chance to get to know her. Karen has been supporting Marigold since about October as our Senior Strategic Counsel, overseeing some strategies and ensuring great quality of work from our team. So we're so grateful to have her. But I've also known her for about 10 years. So really thrilled to be working together again. So over to you, Karen, for the next panel.
Thanks so much, Katie. I'm not sure if we've still got Harv on the call, but we'll tackle it as things unfold. He may have been pulled into something, I understand. Thanks so much.
I'm here.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Hello. Let's get him pinned, Mackenzie, and get him on the A team for this dialogue. I just wanted to ask everyone who is speaking today to introduce themselves, and we'll just pop through. Pauline, let's kick off with you. You're doing so many cool things, I understand, including this market space, which I'm dying to hear more about.
Yes, thank you very much. It's really nice being here with everybody. I've had the pleasure of being in the cannabis industry for 10 years now. We are Hyde Advisory and Investments is our banner company. Hyde Advisory specializes in mergers and acquisitions for cannabis businesses specifically. We also have Canna Navigators under our banner, where we specialize in licensing and security, trying to help everybody get to their end goal of getting licensed. We've recently launched 2 new companies. The first one is called Cannabis Global Consultants, and that is offering what we've learned in our 10 years here in cannabis to the rest of the globe. So we help from seed to shelf, getting people licensed or at least working towards their business model. And then lastly, and I'm super happy to share, we've launched a new website called Cannabis Market Space. It's a 100% free website to connect the cannabis community. It's an online buy and sell platform. So the Kijiji of cannabis, if you will, also gives you an opportunity to have a look at an events calendar so you know what's going on in the cannabis industry, and a job link. So I'm happy to share what I've learned with you guys, and I'm more excited to learn from everybody else that's on the panel. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Pauline. Sean Samuel is Vice President, Sales and Marketing for C15. Sean, please tell us a couple things about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Karen. Appreciate that. So hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone, see some familiar faces here and meet new ones. I'm with C15 Solutions. We're a technology company that's been in the space for about 5 years or so now. Our flagship solution is a quality management system, QMS platform, that has actually been widely adopted in other regulated sectors as well, like pharma, consumer packaged goods, food and beverage. However, we specialize specifically in cannabis. We work with 65 corporate cannabis customers across 7 countries. In fact, over the last 12 months, we've made a big push into international markets, and Marigold has very much been a huge part in helping us achieve that scale and growth. So yeah, happy to be here and share some of the takeaways that we've learned when it comes to B2B marketing.
Thanks, Sean. Happy to have you here too. And Harv, please introduce yourself to the crowd. This is the Chief Revenue Officer for Vantage Hempco.
Hello, everyone.
most of my background's been in healthcare, and been sort of starting this crazy cannabis journey in Canada about 7-8 years ago, being involved with Lift & Co. And a couple of the LPs. Obviously, things got a little out of control here in Canada with the, excuse me, with the public markets and so forth. And we really saw 2018, the Farm Bill, as a significant opportunity in the US and globally. So we kind of went all in on the Vantage Hemp opportunity, and we're based just north of Denver, and really trying to focus on, medicinal level cannabis production, and trying to focus on international markets. And it's you throw in a little bit of COVID and everything else, it's been an interesting few years, to say the least.
It's not over yet. More interesting times ahead. Yeah.
That's the unfortunate part.
I think what makes this panel of people interesting to me, not only are you all experts and specialists in your own unique ways, but there's some commonality in that you all operate with this very global perspective in mind, irrespective of where you're physically located. And none of you are LPs. You're all providing these essential services, professional consultation, tech, manufacturing. So it's sitting around the abundance that is required in order to lift this industry up. So your points of view and perspective on being able to make a way in B2B is going to be a fascinating conversation. And Pauline, I'd love to start with you, if you don't mind, to talk a little bit about how you've had success in your B2B marketing, especially in the ancillary kind of role, how you've been able to get known outside of the people you directly do business with.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I can share to what my experiences have been. And I think I'll start it off by just talking a little bit about the importance of social media. I think since COVID specifically, we all understand how important it is for all of us to stay connected and to explore new avenues of business. Social media, I think, has allowed us to connect on a broader scale with more people. It's allowed us to ask more questions and to grow our network. I think it's important that we connect with groups that are outside of just cannabis specifically. So, ancillary businesses that support cannabis, such as insurance companies and content writers and people in finance and business strategists, pharmaceuticals. These are all groups that we should introduce ourselves to. And, having those connections will lead to more business inevitably. And that would probably take me to the importance of growing your circle. The globe is starting to catch up with where Canada is on legalization. And I think it's important that we share what we learn with the rest of the globe. Also important to note that there's enough work for everybody. So I don't necessarily worry about what my quote unquote competitors are doing. They're not competitors, they're colleagues. And I just focus more on what works for my business model and the audience target that I'm trying to get myself in front of. So on that point, I'd probably say getting out of your comfort zone and surrounding yourself with people that are a lot smarter than you is super important. I think it's important that you listen when people are speaking and really hear what they're trying to say. This way you kind of know how you can best serve your community. And putting yourself in different scenarios, traveling to new countries, attending different events outside of what a conventional conference looks like for us, and accepting invitations to smaller events, participating in things like this, things that are held by our ancillary companies that are supporting cannabis. I think it's really, really important. Another quick point that I'd probably want to say is revisiting the Rolodex. I mean, the past few years, we've seen many key players leaving the industry. A lot of leaders and decision makers have changed within an organization. So really important to stay in the loop and kind of reintroduce yourself to the new key players, because I think that will open up a lot of synergies.
Yeah. Sounds like you've got a lot of comfort in the uncomfortable, the sign of an entrepreneur.
Thank
Sean,
you.
I'm going to pull you in here because some of Pauline's comments reminded me that you've had some experiences of maybe some myth busting around what you might have thought or what you've heard about B2B marketing and what's maybe happened for you that's been successful. Could you touch on that?
For sure. I'll preface my answer by saying, even though I have sales and marketing in my title, I've traditionally been more of an 80-20 sales marketing guy, so leaning towards the sales side. And working with Marigold has been enlightening from a marketing perspective. I'd say one of the myths that was quickly busted was that there's any kind of direct correlation that you can establish between marketing and sales. Being so sales oriented, that is what I've been so obsessed with for so long. And I think part of the picture that I was really missing out on, and I made a note here, Adam S., I won't even try to pronounce your last name. I apologize in advance from the first panel, but Adam raised a good point about trust. And that was kind of one of my biggest takeaways so far has been, building trust is the key kind of component or pillar of this B2B marketing. C15, over 5 years, we've established a really good reputation for ourselves. And as VP of sales, I spend a good chunk of time with a megaphone shouting from the rooftop, trying to get anyone who would listen, telling them about our story and, how good a job we're doing. But it wasn't having the impact I had hoped it would have. And I think that's because, it's us telling that story. So you need to involve other stakeholders. You need to involve the media, collaborate, Pauline, a great term, with colleagues, other stakeholders in the industry, to have your message become way more credible, way more trustworthy, more authentic. So I'd say that's kind of my biggest myth busted and lesson learned so far.
Good. Harvey, it's a good time to introduce you and say, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about B2B partnerships, which is an area inside of the marketing world in alliances and how important those can be, both with companies like C15 maybe, and also with people who you're collaborating with on producing product lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the challenge has been for the last 25 years, I've been in the healthcare space, mostly on the sales and marketing side. And especially in the pharma world, where there's so much data, almost everything is predictable. Like, it's really easy to see that if you spend a certain amount of money in either KOL development or direct to doctor initiatives, they have a certain result. I think for me, the challenge with this industry is that there's no historical data that anyone can pull that helps us internally to decide where to put that spend. Lead generation, all these other things that are typical, where you can kind of say, hey, out of 100 people, I can get one opportunity closed. None of those metrics have really worked for us. So we've kind of had to, over the last year, really focus on what works. And there's been two things that I think have been successful. Number one is leveraging our current networks, right? So talking to people and saying, hey, do you know people in the space that we can work with that would need our services? I would say 70% of the folks we work with right now have come through that channel. And then secondly, the conversation from earlier, we're an international business. 90% of our revenue comes from outside the US. So I'm not at this age that excited about. At 35, sure, I would love to be away and traveling Europe and go to all these places. Not anymore. So for me to go to every single conference and try to travel the world to meet people, it's just, especially during COVID, it wasn't effective. So by working with local groups or partners that become, more than just our distributors, but become part of our portfolio of services really helps. And I obviously with you guys, we've done a lot of work around the PR side and always trying to focus on what matters in each geography. It is fascinating. I mean, this month we'll be sending our first shipments to 4 new countries that we've never shipped to before, and we're experiencing weird stuff, right? Because it's like there's a banking wire issue, or there's a one country, the traditional UPS, et cetera, they won't ship CBD products. So it's like every single shipment has a weirdness to it that we're not typically prepared for. So having somebody on the other side who can deal with the issues and try and manage it locally, it's really almost critical.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I keep you on the hot seat just for a second and talk about something I wanted to talk to Pauline about as well, which is reimagining your business as the industry grows and develops, because it's shape-shifting movements, right, over time. And I think there has been a change from Vantage Hemp Co. 5 years ago to Vantage Hemp Co. today. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about that reimagining and the need to innovate.
Yeah, I mean, I think our biggest challenge is that we likely built too early, meaning that we still need the industry to catch up to the standards that we feel should become day-to-day practice. And I'm sure I probably need to do some reading on prohibition and what happened in that first 10 years. We really looked at it from the perspective of we have to be beyond FDA because we are an international business. So, if you look at Brazil, Anvisa has very different standards. The TGA in Australia has different standards. Japan, you have to extract from stems and stalks. So, when you're in that kind of mix where every single customer might have different needs, that just even makes it more challenging. And I think the one thing that we've done, which has been really helpful, is looking, at plant-based wellness, right? I mean, if you told me when we started the business that we would be extracting Amanita muscaria or oleander, I probably would have thought that was strange. Now it seems quite normal because our processes and standards are high enough where we can, evolve beyond CBD, not intentionally, but as part of our journey in CBD.
Right, right. And Pauline, can I ask you, MarketSpace seems kind of like a bit of an embodiment of the changes of the industry. It literally is providing a platform for people to change what they own, to be able to be that Kijiji. It's only required because there's been so much rise and fall, correct?
Absolutely right. I mean, I think probably the key to a really good business is having real-time knowledge. I think that's what's going to help you stay ahead of the curve, and it's going to help your business succeed long term. When you're a consultant in the industry, you need to know things. You need to know what's happening in the OCS, what's going to impact business. You need to understand why LPs are shutting down, and you need to really know the real issues that cannabis companies are facing, because that's really the only way that you're going to kind of know how to help them. The cannabis business is ever changing. I mean, this cannabis world that we live in, it's changing all the time. So a successful business has to evolve and has to pivot, and it has to offer services that are relevant to a current situation when something is unfolding. Also realizing that you can't be all things to all people. I mean, I think that that's really important. But what you can do is strategically partner and collaborate with other trustworthy colleagues. When you can build a business where you're known to be the go-to person outside of your main brand, so many more opportunities are going to come from that. So it really is a bit of a win-win the way I look at it. You pass along information from your colleagues that will bring them business, and then hopefully vice versa, that will come back. I think one other quick thing that I'll just kind of touch on is kind of reimagining what participating in an event looks like. I know that it's important for me, specifically with all of our businesses, to make sure that I'm budgeting properly, right? There's only so much money to go around. We're not in the heyday of 4 years ago where businesses were just shoveling out thousands and thousands of dollars all the time to kind of get their name recognized. We have to be a lot more thoughtful now. So I think it's important to look closely at the agendas at certain events and see where you can add the best value. Is it worth getting a booth at a conference anymore? Or is your money better spent flying to another, either another country or another province on the other end of Canada and participating in a bit more of an intimate affair, like a cannabis golf tournament or a StratCan event, a nod to my colleague, David Brown. You can attend these smaller, more intimate events that will really create opportunities and grow your relationships.
Right. Great. Yeah, thanks for that advice. Sean, I wonder if you can pipe in here and help us understand a little bit more about how C15 has shifted their offerings, your offerings rather, because there's been some evolution of your EQMS as the industry has grown and the needs have changed too, right?
Yep, that's absolutely right. I would say if ground zero was year one, we probably added damn near 50% new functionality to our platform. So, we've got a lot of new stuff. We've expanded outside of the traditional QMS realm. And the other thing we've had to do alongside with, telling that story is change the way we're telling our story. I would say that, working with Marigold has activated our right side of the brain. If the left side is the analytical, logical, side of the brain, the right's the creative side, we tackle a very complex problem that requires education. And that is one of tackling operational risk, and more specifically, the cost of quality and what that is. That's not it's not a huge discussion right now. It is kind of a black box, but it's a real thing. It's a huge economic headwind to a lot of operators and LPs in the space. And I think we took that approach of, okay, we need to educate the marketplace. So let's be super analytical and logical in our approach to this. But that's kind of dry. That doesn't get people's attention. Most people will just kind of skim right over a logic-filled email. So instead, what we've been forced to do almost is activate the right side of our brain and get a little more creative in our storytelling. Involve our customers like Advantage Hemp, who, by the way, exemplify what a culture of quality is. So, when I hear Harvinder speaking to effectively kind of raising the bar, going above and beyond the existing standards as they're written today, that's kind of our mission as well, to raise the quality and compliance bar for this whole sector. And how do we do that? Well, we need to not just, ram functionality down people's throats. We need to tell a compelling story about this complex problem that we're solving. And sometimes that involves, looping in other stakeholders, whether it be a customer, whether it be an insurance provider in the space, a panel of other colleagues, webinars like this. So yeah, I think we came with a very two-dimensional approach to our marketing efforts on day one, and we've become more 3D, both with the product and our storytelling of the product.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Harv, and maybe you and Pauline can both speak on the subject of thought leadership, which seems to come out of some of what Sean was saying. And Harv, I think that you, to me, exemplify someone who, irrelevant of the fact that your schedule doesn't really allow it, you find time to read. You find time to read, not just within the industry, but outside of the industry. And as a thought leader, I just wonder if you can talk a little bit about how that adds to your own perspective.
Yeah, I think generally, I learned early on that you have to kind of stay in touch with what's happening and not just always in your sector. It's very easy to get very narrow focused, and sometimes you miss the other trends or opportunities. As everyone has stated on this call, this is a fast moving industry. Regulations are changing. Like I've never experienced this level of almost re-education, right? So I think if you stick too close to what to your knitting, you will miss some of those opportunities. A prime example is we just went to the CPHI conference, which is a more traditional API oriented conference in Philadelphia. And it was funny. I was talking to Christian, our director of sales, and I said, I don't think I've seen this many suits since the last funeral I went to, right? Because you go to a cannabis conference and it's a very different experience. And it was really interesting to talk to all these people who don't totally understand where the cannabis industry is going, but they're all aware of it. And we had 4 or 5 really interesting conversations that I think will lead to supply agreements. But it wasn't through the natural kind of, process that you would use. So I'm constantly trying to read as much as I can. I try and spend 45 minutes every morning. just to see where things are going. And that's kind of what led to some of these opportunities in other plant-based molecules, is having that openness and that, ability to kind of see where other industries are going.
It's kind of looping back, Pauline, to what you were saying before about putting yourself in maybe some uncomfortable rooms or situations that are less typical in order to try to evolve your brand, huh?
Yeah, listen, I totally agree. I think getting out of your comfort zone is kind of what's going to grow you as a business and as a person. But in regards to thought leadership, I think it's really important that you build a company that has a reputation for being trustworthy and knowledgeable. I think that's the key. I understand that the cannabis industry itself is fairly new, but running a successful business is not new. So I think it's important that as a business, as a company, as a person, that you set down the foundations, a solid foundation for your business. Because I think that's what's going to help you understand what opportunities and what waves are going to come from the cannabis industry. I think people need to trust that you have their best interest in mind all the time. I think you need to be fully embedded in the industry. You need to see firsthand the struggles that our LPs are going through, that the retailers are going through, struggles that the government is having. And I think also understanding that there are real human beings behind the brands and behind the titles is really, really important. You have to figure out and see, when you're able to be embedded in the day-to-day struggles, you get an opportunity to see kind of what's working and what's not. And I think that's the best way that we could probably help our clients. I would also like to throw in there that, like, not everything is about money. Collectively, I think it's in everybody's best interest that the cannabis industry does well. We all want it to succeed. So, for example, weekly, we have people reaching out to us, whether they're asking if we know somebody that's going to hire, or that they're sitting on equipment that they can't sell and they're really struggling to make payroll. So, there is a real serious crisis in the industry that's been going on for a really long time. And a lot of people have been trying to hide it. So, independent of gain, I think it's really important that we help find solutions to support the industry. And I think that in itself will add a core value to your own business.
Yeah. Well said, Pauline. Thank you for that. And I know, Katie, you're here to tap on my shoulder and say, zip it, lady. I want to give Sean the last word, because he's a guy who talks about trust a lot. And boy, has it ever come up in this conversation. And I just wonder if you'll wrap us up, Sean, with a couple of thoughts around that subject of building trust.
I mean, at the risk of, I don't want to reiterate too much what Adam spoke to, but I would say that it's paramount to any brand. I mean, without, and in fact, that's what our parent company is now focusing on as well. I say parent company, our technology partner, Viva Systems. Just for everyone's quick background, Viva is like a $30 billion company that serves pharma and CPG. We license their QMS software and we laser focus it for cannabis. But their whole focus right now is trust. And it's trust is huge, not just even from a media perspective, but if I put myself in Harv's shoes as a manufacturer, trust through the supply chain, trust through other industry stakeholders like regulators, like insurance providers. So, I mean, trust is more than just a brand thing. I think it's a culture thing. And certainly it's a huge part of our marketing efforts now to try to communicate that to the market, that they can trust C15. And like I said, other industry stakeholders can attest to that as well. But without the marketing, I mean, there's only so much you can do. Your voice will only carry so far. And if you're trying to grow a new audience, inevitably a new brand, you need to have that trust factor as you go into new markets and establish new partners and all that stuff. So it's the cornerstone of our marketing efforts now, for sure. In fact, trust and engagement would be how I'd say I measure success even. So, yeah.
And you know what, Karen, I'd add one thing to Sean's statement here, something that we've likely not had to deal with as entrepreneurs and business people, is that trust relates to financial viability. Like, we've had a number of our vendors go bankrupt. They cannot provide support to us anymore. So we now have a process internally where we need to actually look at the financial viability of not only of our customers, but also our vendors, which honestly, I've never had to be concerned about in any other industry in my
Because
past
it
life.
loops back and affects your own reputation, right?
100%. I mean, you know, we have lots of vendors that we bought machines and equipment from that we now have to bring an engineering team in at our cost to maintain those machines because the vendors are no longer around. And that's just a whole nother level of trust that we have to build into our relationships, which I've never had to worry about in any of my other businesses.
Yeah, that's a great point, Harv. This is the wild, wild west. So if trust holds weight anywhere, it's this sector for sure.
You'd be amazed, John, how many times I bring this up with a client where I say, we'll still be here in a year. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, well, and they're like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. I said, well, yeah. So if you're going to go and launch a multinational chain or through a multinational chain and your provider goes bankrupt, can you imagine how that could impact your business?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just add something super quick? I think it's really important as a thought leader that we keep one thing in mind, and not everybody comes from a legacy market. I totally get it, and you don't have to do well, but I think it's important that we give a nod to the legacy market, understanding that the advocates that came before us that, you know, helped with getting, you know, medicine and wellness products into people's lives. We're building on the back of what they've been doing for years. So I think it's super important that we give a nod to that legacy market and understand the importance that they play. You know, we're seeing other countries, Barbados, Caribbean, which we've worked in, New York State, really deferring to the legacy market when they're writing their regs and they're setting up their framework, because they understand the importance of bringing in that legacy market, not just for knowledge, but also for partnership. So I just have to give a quick nod for that and make sure that, you know, that we keep that on the forefront. It's super important.
You better be reading the chat after, Pauline, because there's like 100 cheerleaders standing right behind you, appreciating your point of view on this subject.
Oh, I'm gonna jump in here. Thank you so
Katie.
much, you guys. That was great. And we're gonna get a chance to go into breakout rooms now, where you may get a chance to connect directly with Harv or Sean or Pauline. So if you have more questions, you can definitely ask them directly. So Mackenzie right now is in the background organizing everyone into the room. So I'm just going to fill up airtime for about 30 seconds here while she gets organized. So fascinating, the conversation about trust, which makes a lot of sense from all facets. The speed of the industry, the change in the industry, and some of the bad apples that have really caused some problems for the rest of us as we work all through it. And thank
Danielle,
you for that.
can I say one thing? Just, I think it's really important what Pauline said, but I already love the fact that this is a huge step, guys. 5 years ago, we'd be using the word black market. The fact that we've already switched it to legacy is a huge improvement, right? Because it doesn't have a negative connotation. So I'm very encouraged when I hear that statement versus that kind of black market, ominous type conversation we used to have 5 years ago. Sorry, I just had to say that.
No, that's a great point. And you hear it too. You find even LPs are talking about their master growers, including their legacy experience. And people are being more forthright about their background and what they've been up to for the past 20, 30 years, some of these master growers. So, you know, where would we be without all of that knowledge? All right, everyone, thanks for hanging on. We're a little bit over time, but that's kind of true Marigold Live style, just a few minutes extra. It was so great to connect with you all. As a reminder, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find your colleagues on LinkedIn. We will send out a recording after the fact, along with some links to the great publications and industry leaders you heard from today. So watch for that in your inbox and reach out anytime to me or the rest of the Marigold team. We're always happy to connect and hear about what you've got going on. So have a great day. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.